I wrote this rubric because I want you to know exactly what I am looking for in your work. It contains my best attempt to capture the ingredients of a successful analytical paragraph. On the vertical axis are the criteria and their relative weights. Claim, 30%, data, 30%, interpretation, 30%, and then another 10% thrown in for writing. Well, an outstanding claim answers the question fully and directly, and it shows insight into the text. It shows an ability to synthesize, to put together pieces of the puzzle from different parts of the reading, and to see a larger picture, one that's not immediately apparent to a casual reader. A good claim responds to the question and answers it fully with a clear and relevant claim. Insightful is going down to relevant. At the needs improvement level, there's something missing. The topic sentence might be somewhat off topic, or the claim answers the question, but it uses vague language to produce broad assertions that don't really take a specific stand. The insufficient range covers D to F. A grade in this range might mean that the paragraph doesn't start with a claim. That can happen in several very common ways, by the way. First, the sentence that opens the paragraph might be a quote from the text. That's not a claim that you're making about the meaning of the text. Or it might be a fact from the text. Your first sentence might be a question. Or third, your first sentence might be what I call an announcement. In this paragraph, I will discuss and examine whether Hamlet goes insane. An announcement says that there will be an answer forthcoming in the paragraph, but remember, I want your best one-sentence version of your answer to be heading that paragraph. Claims can also be insufficient because they just don't represent the text sufficiently. Well, I've spent a lot of time so far on that first line because it's worth 30% of your grade, but really it's even more important than that. Your whole paragraph exists to support your claim. So in some sense, a lot of your battle is lost or won in the first sentence. So give it a lot of your attention. Let's drop down to data. I want you to start thinking a little bit like a lawyer in a courtroom. Let's say a defense attorney. You can't just stand up and say, "Your Honor, my client is innocent," and sit down. Everyone will look at you. What's your evidence? What's your data? The same thing holds true in a literature class. Once you make your opening assertion, you have to follow it up. And your data in this case is quotes. Sometimes paraphrases, but more often getting the language itself, because the language matters, quoting the text, multiple quotations that support your assertion. So, looking at the levels, outstanding would mean there are multiple quotes, because just like 1 point can't support a line, it takes 2 points to support a line, 3 points to support a claim. You need multiple points of evidence to hold up that claim. Those points of evidence also can't be from just one little part of the reading. They should ideally be drawn from throughout the reading. A good claim is supported by multiple relevant quotes of various lengths. Quote whole sentences if you need to, quote phrases if you just need the phrase, quote just the one word which helps to support what you're arguing. Mix up your quote lengths. Needs improvement. The claim is supported by at least one relevant quote, but as I said, 1 point is not going to hold up a line or a plane. Insufficient. The claim may not be supported by any quotes, or the quotes do not support the claim. I would call that an alignment problem. You've quoted the text, but that quotation does not prove what you argued in your first line. On to interpretation. Let's think again about a courtroom. You walk in, you say, "Your Honor, my client is innocent," and you put a gun on the table, bagged as evidence, and sit down. Again, everyone's going to look at you because your job's not done yet. That gun doesn't tell its own story. It doesn't explain itself. And literature's the same way. All of us as readers, as human beings, we bring different perspectives, different abilities, different values to reading. So when you put a gun or a piece of evidence or a quotation in front of the jury, you need to explain its significance. What does this gun tell us? What do you see in this quote? How does this quote support the claim? So at the outstanding level, quote interpretation, so a nuanced understanding of the text. You really understand what it means. You point out words and their connotations. You really take us into the heart of the quote and show a real depth of comprehension. Good, again, it's just solid, a good understanding of the text. Yeah, you got it. You understood what that meant. Needs improvement. Well, this might be where you simply rephrase the quote and you don't add anything to it, but simply restate what's in it without drawing out its context, who says it and when, why it's particularly significant, what the importance of certain words are. You don't really add any value to it. Or you might misinterpret part of the quote. And then, at insufficient, quotes may lack interpretation. You just quote and then move on. Or the quote simply is just misinterpreted. Down to the last line, writing, 10%. Let's leave the courtroom analogy aside and think of a radio station, say. We've all heard radio stations where it's hard to hear the music coming through because of the static. The signal-to-noise ratio's gotten bad. The writing weight is really about that noise. Is there a clear signal of meaning coming through your words, or is there a lot of noise, writing problems, possibly grammar problems, word usage problems, which obscure that signal of meaning? So at the outstanding level, the writing's fresh. It sounds like you cared when you wrote it. Another hint is, if you want your professor to be in a good mood while grading your paper, put care into crafting your language. And then I'll be smiling when I'm grading, and that's not going to go badly for you. Think about it. It's concise. Concise means there are no extra words. It means I couldn't go through the paragraph and cross out any words and yet have the sentences mean the same thing. Concise also means you haven't used unnecessarily long, complex constructions when a simple, clear construction works. And basically error-free. Quotes are skillfully introduced. Quotes must always be introduced. Quotes may not stand alone as their own sentences. They should be introduced by who says them, or when they're said, or even better by their significance along with who said them. And they're correctly cited. So a parenthetical citation, text or author's name, space, and then the page or the line number. Down to good, the writing is clear. Please do not write to impress. Please do not pull out all the flowery words you learned for the ACT. That is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the best word, the most accurate word, the word that conveys the most meaning, but most importantly, I want your writing to be clear. Down to needs improvement. The writing may be vague. It may be wordy. That's the opposite of concise. Quotes might lack introductions, but are still correctly cited. And then 0 to 69, insufficient. Writing may be difficult to follow. There may be distracting errors, so that really now we're getting more noise than signal. Quotes may lack introductions. So that's what I'm looking for, basically. And if you'll bear with me just another minute, I want to tell you how I grade. Before I've even read a word of your paragraph, I am assuming you have a B all the way down, second column, good in every area. That's kind of my default, my standard, my go-to. Let me define what that means. A B means good work. It means you followed the instructions, you answered the question, you had a topic sentence claim, you gave evidence, you interpreted it, you wrote clearly. This is a good grade. C means there's one or more areas where significant improvement is necessary. D is the grade just above failing. It means, well, yeah, this will pass, but it's also a warning that you're on the edge of an F. What did I leave out? A, outstanding. It's actually the hardest level to define, and it's the least common grade. An A paper means you distinguished yourself. I read through this group of paragraphs or essays, and yours stood out. It was one of a couple that was fresh, it was bright, it was memorable. How do you get one? See, there's no formula for being fresh or original or insightful. I find that B papers tend to be rather similar, but A papers tend to be rather different. So there's no formula for doing A-level work. It's that level that especially gifted students attain through hard work, and every one of them is different. So that is my attempt to tell you how I grade and what I value in writing, what I'm looking for. So if you have questions or comments for me, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Thanks for listening.